Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants turned in from all part of the world. Welcome to the second episode of Entrepreneurial series. As you know, we are having a 1 year celebration of events, part of 25th anniversary of IMK. Do participate, support, and subscribe to the IMK YouTube channel for more exciting offers. I'm Anoop Ramakrishnan. IMK Kochi first batch, NTTF diploma holder in tool and die making and mechanical engineer, co-founder of Crafter Solutions since 2017 and co-founder of Rodi Labs. So at Crafters, we do tool engineering to support clients to handhold tooling from customization to production. And at Rodi Labs, we do IT solutions, basically AI, IoT, and predictive analysis. We have Mr. Rohan Kalani with us today. He is PGP 2013 batch, CEO of MakerVillage. MakerVillage is a unique innovation center that provides everything necessary for a hardware company to innovate, design, and develop products. MakerVillage is a joint venture between the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and IITM Kerala. Rohan is also a alumni of NIT Calicut, hails from Thrissur and settled in Cochin. Agenda of today's discussion is to have an understanding of MakerVillage, what they do, and startups' approach towards developing new products and various stages of this. So let us know more about MakerVillage from Rohan. Please welcome Rohan.
Hi, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our subscribers. The intent of this program is to make people understand what MakerVillage is all about, and very specifically about product development. So that is why we are that is the brief agenda of this program. So I have been working in this particular early stage support ecosystem for the past 7 years. So before MakerVillage, I was working with an incubator which was supporting student entrepreneurs who comes with a very early stage idea and then help them scale. So the program was called Startup Village, and that is when we developed a scheme very specifically for electronics. So I would like to briefly say, why do we need an innovation center like MakerVillage? And before getting into more details about the incubator or the innovation center per se. So if you see, in 2012, there was a national policy of electronics, which was formulated by the government of India. The largest import item is basically electronics. Like for example, in 2019, almost $55 billion was the import bill related to electronic products. So that also contributes to a huge trade deficit with countries like China, and it also hinders the development of local industries. So that was when there was a committee formed to look into how could you actually develop products in India. And the most important thing is that even though there was the Make in India initiative, which was launched with much fanfare, what actually happened was assemble in India. So most of the engineering was done outside. Only a part of the manufacturing, which would probably be around 10 to 15% of the total value chain, was brought to India. So the most value is actually made in the engineering part. So that is why we need to have the real engineering happening in the country, considering the fact that there are a large number of engineers and ecosystem in place. Now, the other part is basically the recent development in technology, which actually helped makers to come out with products. So earlier, the whole electronic ecosystem was out of reach to innovators and entrepreneurs, because there was no open source movement which happened like what happened in with Linux and GPU licensing in the early 90s. The maker movement in the US, which probably happened in the early 2000s, which actually democratized electronics. There was some kind of development tools and kits that came out which helped any innovator to actually try on an idea. So that actually helped a lot of companies to come up with products which later became billion dollar companies. What initially helped those companies was crowdfunding platforms. So along with this kind of infrastructure in place, and also the fact that the startup ecosystem was blooming in India, we made a proposal to the ministry of setting up such a center in Kochi. And Kochi already had a legacy. Kerala had a legacy of a very interesting example of Keltron, which pivoted from a normal government company to one of the better R&D focused company who started making electronic products. So there is already a huge interest in electronics among the community here, and that is when along coupled with that, we were able to actually convince the government to support in setting up a electronic incubator, and that is how this innovation center came up. So if you see the current status, we have different category of startups. So this is a brief overview of the kind of profile of both the founders and also the kind of sector of technologies we have.
Very interesting.
Next slide. Next slide. So MakerVillage started operations in 2016, and these are some of the significant achievements of the startups incubated at MakerVillage. So we have been widely recognized by the defense ecosystem. As you can see that there has been a huge number of winners uh, of of the programs of the Ministry of Defense. We also have got winners in uh, something called the IAGP2 challenge, which is run by Lockheed Martin and the Department of Science and Technology. In fact, we had the largest number of winners from a single innovation center. We also have again funding support received from the Ministry of the Department of Biotechnology. They have a very specific scheme called BIRAC. The next slide. And some of these startups were able to get purchased out of from corporates in a very short span of time. Considering the fact that the lead time for hardware companies ranges from around 24 months to 48 months, I think some of our companies could actually accelerate the product development and get into the purchase order with very reputed companies. So, since inception, the startups at MakerVillage have received a total funding of around 40 crores INR. So, that is not does not look like a huge amount from a VC perspective. But as far as early stage innovations are concerned, that is a considerable amount. Considering due to the fact that hardware is usually a huge, it's a very high risk venture, because of the multiple aspects associated with it. So we were able to get a decent amount of funding from Bharat Petroleum, the IIGPT program. Gas Authority of India has funded in three of our startups. And as far as the IDEX program of the Ministry of Defense is concerned, MakerVillage had the highest number of winners, as you can clearly see. The next slide. Yeah, so this would be basically an overview of the facilities which we have here. Yeah, so I'll briefly say what these facilities are. So any kind of hardware product would need basically three to four types of equipment. So one is equipments which can manufacture the products, and usually products are either made out of metal or plastic. So for plastics, we have a very advanced industrial 3D printer from Hewlett Packard, which is a state of the art machine which can actually 3D print plastics like with a finish similar to a final product. We also have a metal machining center that can do the metal work. The other part is the testing and measurement lab, which is used for testing the electronics. So that also we have a fully fledged facility. Now, during the phases of product development, what is usually encountered is that you need different type of software simulation products like SolidWorks, CATIA. So we also ensure that all the software infrastructure is also in place. So if you see, it's a 360-degree infrastructure. So you have everything that is required from starting a product from scratch and building a very advanced prototype. So, so there is no other facility in the country which has all these facilities at a single point. So all our facilities are in a single floor, spanning probably around 100 meters, 20,000 square feet. And incidentally, the MIT Super Fab Lab, the only MIT Super Fab Lab outside of the US is located at, exactly in that same facility. So all these factors actually makes us very unique in the sense that anybody can come with an idea, and all you need to have is your engineering expertise and the product plan to actually build a product. Next slide. And these are some of the funding schemes which we are associated with. So all these schemes provides funding to startups in different quantums, ranging from 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs to 1.5 crores for the Ministry of Defense. And we are a partner innovation center for all these programs. So we take very specific applications on these themes, and we manage the selection of the startups and distribution of funds, and we also monitor their progress and ensure that the products come out uh, at the right time in the right shape. The next slide. And this is one of the, this is a recent development. So we started this accelerator program in the last year. This is this is the first program which is being done in the country through an international partner. So Brink is based out of Hong Kong, and they run multiple programs across the world in 5 continents. So we were able to bring them to MakerVillage, and along with the government of Kerala, we run this program where once the startup is onboarded to the program, they are given 80,000 US dollar of funding in cash and services, and this actually would enable them to complete a major part of their product development. The other intent was to bring an international flavor so that uh, these startups who are selected in this program get exposure to the global activities that is taken care by Brink, and also this also enables them to get an outreach to the worldwide market. So right now the program is running, and incidentally today is the what we call the demo day, where all of these startups are showcased to a group of investors around the world. So right now, 10 of our startups are being showcased to 600 investors around the world. I think, yeah. So that would be a very brief introduction about MakerVillage.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Rohan, actually, to know that, hardware and across segments. So normally on entrepreneur talks, we talk about funding and, entrepreneur's journey, success, and other things, sales. Maker Village particularly focus on the product development. So that's an interesting aspect, because that's something which every entrepreneur needs, a hand holding. So how do we incubate, incubation process in
Hmm?
this Maker Village? Can you just explain about the incubation process of Maker Village?
Yeah. So so what we do is that we invite applications on our portal, and when there is a critical number of applications, we have a screening committee of independent experts, and the startups are and the innovators or the startup group is called for a presentation, and after that the selection is done. So what we usually find is that this usually happens uh, uh, every every month, and in a year, around 30 startups are taken into the program.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we don't think that is the kind of infrastructure which we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So 80 to 90 startups can be accommodated in this space. So
Okay.
every year we find that 10 to 15 startups drop off, and then every year we have an intake of 25 to 30 startups.
Okay.
So and what we so early stage, it's a different game altogether. So we don't look at the typical documents which we go for, which we ask during an investor pitch. So we are not interested in in the cash flow cycles and or uh, an inflated profit and loss account. All those things don't make sense. What we really look forward is the intent of the team, how passionate they are, and have they done something. So is there basically any skin in the game? So at least have they spent, let's say, 50,000 or 1 lakh from their pocket, and they've done something. They've spent enough time on this idea. So it's very easy to come up with ideas. You get ideas on every turn. So everyone has hundreds of ideas. So the more important aspect is how passionate they are about this, about actually engendering a product out of this. So that is what we look forward, because we are able to support a large number of startups. It's okay if a large number of them fail. The intent is twofold. So it's basically to inculcate a sense of innovation and experimenting without the fear of failure. So that is why we don't look too much into the commercial sense of things. Maybe that can definitely come later as the ecosystem evolves, as there are more and more investors. So it is just not looking at building companies. So the ecosystem slowly develops around a place when there are activities related to that. For example, I don't think you would have come to MakerVillage unless you haven't seen product startups here. So that is what brings new partnerships, new ecosystems, new linkages, and the
Mm.
and the synergies that are developed associated with the sender.
Mm. Also, the energy level inside this, make a village. Yeah. So,
Right, right, right.
is this the only institute like this, or are there any similar institutions across country? If yes, you're connected with them, or is there any difference? Because you said it's a unique, no,
Yeah.
organization
So
here.
yeah. So what you see behind me is the kind of infrastructure we have. It's more ultra modern, easy to access. We run this like a private entity. The other incubators are usually housed in academic institutions, and there is no one center where that you can get all these facilities together. So like
Okay.
there is an incubator in Sign IIT. It's called
Mhm.
Sign in IIT Bombay. There is one called Electropreneur Park in Delhi
Mm.
University. There is NASCOM Center of Excellence for IIT in Bangalore, and there
Mm.
is one at IIT Madras. There is Forge in Coimbatore. So all of them have different ways of doing things. So what we have realized is that we give primary importance to the product development part.
Okay. So, what kind of products primarily, startups try out here? So, can you just
I
give a perspective about that?
Yeah, so I have a very brief video of some of the products that have come out of MakerVillage, because
Oh,
that will
okay.
give you a more clear picture than what I could probably say in a
Yeah.
few words. I'll
Okay.
just I just put that presentation up just a few minutes, just a minute. Yeah. This is an AR headset which was developed by one of our startups here.
Very interesting.
It's a very it's a very bold move considering the fact that he's going to compete with probably Apple and Intel. So there are a large number of companies who are doing this, and we are very proud of the fact that he is aiming something like this. I don't think there is any other product which has a large market scope, uh, or you could say is as futuristic as this. The product was developed in a span of around maybe 36 around 3 years. So they've built this from scratch, including the optics, the light projection system, building a custom operating system where different applications from the mobile phone can be projected. So this is very designed for both privacy and work. There are the differentiating factors that there isn't much gimmicky features in this particular product. It's just pure display. It's an augmented display. So there is no features like augmented reality games or things like that. It basically enables you to view things in private, get your work done on a large screen. That is the whole concept of this product. And right now, this is available for pre-order. He has launched this on his own website, and the product is going to ship in the next half of 2021. Yeah. So this is another interesting product. So I think people from Kerala should be familiar with toddy. So it's a drink uh, which which is very prevalent in this part of the country. It's slightly alcoholic, but not good enough. So what this machine is that it actually helps you in tapping this sap from coconut trees. Uh, so what toddy is basically, it's the sap of the inflorescence. So toddy is made when the sap is collected and fermented. So this product actually helps you to tap this inflorescence, and you could derive multiple products from this. So one could be coconut palm sugar. Another product could be, there's a company in Sri Lanka which makes which ages this product ages this material and makes uh, very high end arak. So what is the relevance of this product is that you don't find too many. You find it very difficult to get labor to do all these kind of activities. So, and a large number of coconut growers in Southeast Asia find this difficulty. So that is one of the reasons why this is very relevant. He also have got an international patent on this device, and he has applied protection in around 7 to 8 countries in Southeast Asia. He is right now in the final stages of producing this device. There is a lot of interest for this device from particularly from Sri Lanka and Philippines. So we believe that this would be a game-changing product for toddy drinkers. Excuse me. Sound in. Yeah, so that is how this app is collected. So we can go to the next product. We can move on to the next slide. So this is an example of a very interesting drone. So this is capable of flying up to 100 kilometers. So this is where a lot of engineering is involved. So they have come up with a very unique design where it's a fixed wing aircraft uh, with which has adopted a design from both drones and a normal aircraft and combined. So, so they have been funded by the Gas Authority of India for monitoring the pipelines across the country. We move to the next. So, if you see electronic, the EV industry has been picking up pace in the recent years. So, what this startup has done is that they have developed something called the electric drive for two wheelers and three wheelers. So, what this does is that it actually controls the it is very similar to the gearbox of a conventional engine. So this is where actually the control happens. So how much power should be delivered to the wheels? How much power should be taken from the battery? So this is basically the main control center of an automobile, of an electric automobile. So as far as two wheelers and three, so they are very much focused on two wheelers and three wheelers. So they are working with a major OEM in the country, and they've already started delivering the products. So their products are going to come in the product of a major OEM in India. Yeah, the next product I would like to talk about is an IoT infusion monitor. So what it helps is to monitor the infusion rate for patients who are administered intravenous medications. So what? This product is also now on pilot trials. So they also have received a recent round of funding from Department of Biotechnology to provide this to COVID-related patients. So this is an automated roti maker that can cook fresh and healthy rotis. So again, this is done by one of our IIM Code alumni. So I think the video would make the operations very clear. Yeah, so Transmeo IT Solutions have come up with a very interesting product where they are able to track the movements over the underground pipelines, which is usually laid by oil and gas companies. So what they're doing is that they're using the existing infrastructure of optical cables, and they're trying to get any kind of noise that is created by activities and filter that out and understand what kind of activities is going on. So they're working with Hindustan Petroleum Corporation, and they have been funded by that same company. Yeah, so I think that gave you a flavor of, I mean, what are the different type of products that have come from Maker Village. So if you look at from a technology perspective, there are different approaches to be taken for different kind of products. So if you see, I think Internet of Things is the new kid on the block. So IoT technology basically enables appliances to talk to each other. So if you see the hardware device is usually a dumb device. What it takes is that it takes some kind of sensory data, and there is a communication system which transfers that data to the cloud. And mostly the value is provided by the data analytics and insight engine. So, um, so when you look at the approach to be taken by an IoT product startup, what can be ideally done is that they don't have to do the engineering for the hardware device. So that can be outsourced to any company that has already has done very similar devices, and they could probably focus on the analytics and the inside part. Um, Now, if you look at a robotic or drone startup, engineering is the key aspect here. So the real value is derived during the engineering. So it might be, let's say, 5% improvement in efficiency, or 10% improvement in the range of a drone. So these particular engineering deliverables can only be achieved by a very long R&D process, which might not involve an intellectual property, and this usually needs a very strong engineering team who would be able to deliver on all these aspects. So when you are looking into that kind of a product, it is very pertinent to have a very strong engineering team who would be actually delivering on this product. So, and these kind of technologies have a lead time of 3 to 4 years to stabilize, and might involve two or three iterations, two or three very advanced prototypes, and that is when you could be able to have an edge over a competitor, or an existing category of product. So so that company should definitely follow a very different approach. So now another class of devices could be medical devices, which um, we find a lot of startups trying to develop. So drip monitoring was an example of that. So, as far as medical devices are concerned, the global standard is to follow the FDA guidelines. So, FDA basically classifies devices as class 1, class 2, class 3 devices, depending on the complexity of the device and what is the type of intrusion into the body. So something like an invasive robotic surgery device would be a class 3 device, and the drip monitoring, what we saw here, would be a class 1 device. Uh, and anyone who is trying to build this should always keep that in focus. So, uh, a class 1 device, which is exempt from any kind of regulations, is much easier to manufacture and bring onto the market, whereas a class 2, class 3 device might take 5 years after to get the approval after the clinical trials. And usually the application and this process cost would range from 100K to $1 million. So and the product realization could take up to 5 years. So these are some elementary uh, research and that should be undertaken by a startup when they particularly focus on a very specific kind of devices. So I think Anoop also has worked in one of these related categories. So it would be great if you could share some of the snippets of what you have learned from that.
Yeah. So, being a mechanical engineer, getting into IT was not so easy. But in 2017, with my co-IMK batchmates, Mr. Ranjit Vishnathan and Banerjee Pillai, I started Rodi Labs, which focused mainly into AI and IoT related products. So, interesting products, say, as you mentioned, IoT. We are the first company in Kerala to start vision processing units, AI-based vision processing units, and make it an edge processing, which used for like garbage disposal monitoring. So somebody throws garbage, we catch in real time alert, we send with a video snippet. Also, this has been used for vehicle detection, vehicle categorization, no
Mhm.
parking violations, intrusion detection. So these are all things where a camera uses our vision processing unit, where we have IoT inside this for communication, and we do. Apart from that, we developed e-tracker, a product of Rodi, which mainly senses data from vehicles, electronic vehicles, for predictive analysis. And this product enabled us to get selected as the best four startups in the world
Mhm.
in the automotive predictive analysis segment by StartUs, a Vienna-based organization. So uh, for IoT products, let's start the next part of our discussion. We at Rodi, what we do is we categorize into three segments, like electronics, software, then hardware. So we always start our process with electronics, where we do this individual sensor testing to understand the requirement, to meet the requirement. Then we do the integration testing. Once the electronics is stabilized, parallelly we do this UI and all, but once the electronics is stabilized, we connect a functionality with software. This is where we complete our prototypes and minimum viable product. Once the minimum viable product is approved by the customer, then we go to uh, the hardware parts. Because hardware parts, as you know, the capital investment is very high, and when you go to the production, you have to be very clear about the cost involved, not only for the tools or the molds, but also the inventory, the production planning. So even if you outsource the production, you have to have that work in progress and inventory. So the interestingly, what I could say, as I mentioned, uh, Crafter Solutions, the tooling company which I started with my one of my NTTF batchmate, Mr. Nitin Alacheri. This company focus on from designing to develop tools, various across segment tools, and supply components, whether it is precision machine parts or jigs or fixtures. So together, it was very easy for Rodi Labs to develop IoT products and know release products in production. So once we discuss further regarding the product development stages, then you will understand the importance of having the knowledge or understanding about mechanical or tooling or the traps, lying there. So having said that, every incubated company who develop new products go through different stages, as I mentioned. So can you elaborate more on the stages of startup journey, how you play a role in each stage? So that let's go to the next segment of our discussion.
Yeah, so every startup starts with an idea. So the first stage could be called as the proof of concept or the prototyping stage, where they basically buy off the shelf components, and then they try to make a product to see if a very limited number of the functions are achieved. So that gives them it gives them a brief idea about how to go forward. They could showcase that particular prototype to prospective agencies who are ready to support them, like probably MakerVillage. So we don't actually incubate ideas. So we ensure that the team which is approaching us at least has a proof of concept or a prototype. So that is when they come in, and then once the product development starts, they what we the first thing what we ask them to do is make the product requirement documentation. So that basically says what is the device about, what are the functionalities, what are the kind of technologies to be used, what are the kind of bill of material, how much is the software side of product development, how much is embedded systems development, how much off the shelf component can be used, what are the where we have to do the engineering. So once that is finalized, the team starts building a minimum viable product. So that could usually take around 3 to 6 months. So once that is finalized, the next step is called an advanced prototype. You call it functional prototype or a design verified tested product prototype. So in that stage, it is very essential to look at the number of products you would have to build. So whether it is designed for manufacturing, you should have a brief idea of the, let's say, the color, material, finish of the product. I mean, how to ensure that it is easy to check easy to have a quality control uh, check when the product is manufactured. So here things get a bit technical, and then once that is finalized, and so this could at this stage, advanced technologies like industrial 3D printing can be used to make the product, and then usually it's given to a set of pilot customers to test and evaluate what are the kind of improvements to be done. And there could be probably have one more iteration, so there is no scope for 2 or 3 iterations once a very advanced functional prototype is made. And the next stage is tooling, which is a very costly process, and that usually requires a bridge round of funding. So a very complicated mechanical product with, let's say, 20 more parts would require at least 2 crores for the tooling process itself. So that is when that is a process before the commercial release. Now, there is another aspect of testing and certification that comes. So you cannot actually test a prototype product because that is not the actual material that is going to be used. So it is very essential that the testing can only be done with the actual product which comes after tooling. Now, the criticality of tooling and the design that is done before that is that once you fail in any of these mandatory tests, you have to go back to the tooling. So essentially, you could probably lose around 1 to 2 crores. So that is why the design process from the functional prototype is very critical before the commercialization. So some of the tests that usually the products undergoes are simple things like drop test. It's put in a humidity chamber for a period of time. Let's say if it's IP certified, there is a test called mist spray. And from the electronics point of view, there is something called electromagnetic interference and electromagnetic conductance. Like, does this device affect other electronic devices, or is this device affected by surges in voltage? So all these safety precautions has to be taken care of. Uh, so it is very essential that all these aspects are taken care of when you actually go in for commercial manufacturing. So I think since Anoop is a tooling expert, you could probably talk about a few experiences you had working with startups, specifically in tooling.
Yeah, that's purpose of this discussion. My inputs I want to provide is regarding the tooling development and the production. So normally any startups in IoT or with no IT experience, they have very less knowledge about tooling. So always when you develop a product, you should have proper planning and fair idea about tooling and methodologies they use. So I'll try to give you some examples and simplify this. So any startup which release a hardware, uh, they will have various parts with the metal, plastic, or any other material. So normally in a product development stage, during the pilot or prototypes, as you mentioned, they'll be using 3D printing for three or five parts, and silicon casting, say 20 parts with better aesthetics and stability. So they'll be using silicon casting, also called vacuum casting. And for a little more larger numbers like 500 components or so, they'll go for a soft tool. So all these have its own pros and cons, but this is well enough for a minimum viable product to have a pilot testing before commercial release without eating out your wallet. Then the depending on the design and shapes and the functionality, as you said, the stress test, all those things, various types of toolings are there, like injection molding is there, blow molding is there, auto types, roto molding is there, press tools, precision machining. So you have to understand who is having that capability to supply. So a person can't do everything, right? So that is where the fair idea helps you to decide. Then the one thing all startup has to understand is, as you rightly said, this is the area where you need very high capital, and you don't have a turning back. Once you invest and material is cut, it is cut. You can't change again. You can only modify or do some changes, but always any change comes with a cost. So the risk is very high once you start manufacturing. So before starting of a product development, understanding the actual cost of capital investment, because you design something and the DFM stage you make it now 2-3 parts, because it is, that's how you can manufacture. Then going for 3 molds which cost 5 lakhs each, 15 lakhs has gone up instead of 5 lakhs you planned early for a single part. So you have to be very clear about the tooling while planning this no, product development initial stage itself. And also the thing which I would like to say is the production setup. Commercial release is totally different from the minimum viable product. Whatever efforts you put to prove a product and release an industrial product for the further use, it's just a totally different ball game. So uh, this requires a proper no scheduled cash flow, at least for the first 6 months, to have a successful product sales. Because you need to have inventory at least for 3 months so that you get your cash back. So all this inventory we are talking about are the parts which you purchase from suppliers. As a startup, you may not get credit. For a bigger companies, yes, they will get the credit. So the sales and the purchase are almost in line with the cash flow. But for a startup, always you have this hurdle, and most of the companies, startups, end up here. So this is called the value of death for startups, where you have a high capital investment and this inventory cost for releasing a product. So getting a high volume order is not an exciting thing if you don't have enough cash to purchase raw material. Same way, the most important trap, I would say, the trap of low cost in tooling. This is something which we need to be very carefully understanding, because there is a saying, right? When you pay peanuts, you get monkey. Same way, if you don't have a basic idea about no differentiating companies, you will end up having two quotations from company A and company B. For example, say two cavity injection mold, it will mention two cavity injection mold for your cover from company A and company B. Company A will charge you 5 lakhs, company B will charge you 10 lakhs. So obviously there will be a tendency to go with that 5 lakhs because it's very high. But in reality, uh, every company has its own cost. So I'll just try to explain for those who try to make any tools or like develop products with the tools. There are three classification we can classify in three level for tooling companies. And always remember, tool company have only one time to make money. Whether you pay 10 lakhs, 5 lakhs or 50 lakhs, all these company takes almost same percentage of margin. So this is cheaper means you all that means the company is investing that much only into your mold. So now, Class A companies, which is like 20 plus crores investment for in-house machines, molding machines for trial purpose, in-house designing centers, all this, and their overheads are so high, it is very likely to accept a project from startups because the volumes are less. A 10,000 unit is a very high volume for a startup, whereas 10,000 unit is nothing for a class A company. So they are talking about millions production. Then we have class B kind of companies. Class B kind of companies are the companies where they invest 2 to 5 crores, and they're busy every day because they have investment or to 2 to 5 crores, and they have uh, minimum no say one designer or two designer, and no minimum resources apart from machines. So they don't have time to spend with each no startup to make them understand what is the flow, flows, or how it can be improvised. They will just take your product, they will do their analysis, they will make them parts. They are making parts individually, they are not working on your complete project, or they are not walking through you. So this is where you will end up having decent priced companies with the products, but it may create problems later in the assembling and fitting area, but the products will be good enough. Then there is a third category of companies, which are the companies they charge you like 5 lakhs or 3 lakhs, 30% or 50% of the average cost. These companies where the owner will be working with two or three machines and two or three employees, and remaining things they will add, outsource. Finally, they will give you something which you won't be able to sell or able to produce cost effectively. So higher the capital investment on tooling, lower the production cost. Again, there is a balance depending on the volume production. So once we complete the classifications, we can go to the next thing. See, I have classified three categories of tooling. I have said you the pitfall, the trap of low cost tooling. I have shown you this, what we say, the value of death, like no, the challenge of inventory cost. Now, Rohan, what what do you think the impact of mentoring in this particular area with startups? How can you guide them to reach to the right area or right vendor and right decision on that? So what do you do about it?
Yeah, I think that was a very deep insight on tooling. So as far as mentoring on tooling and commercialization is concerned, we do have some partners and a panel exactly for that. So what we do is that when startups reach that stage, we ask them to talk to a few of them to get a few insights, and the decision on whom to approach or whom to partner is again is under the purview of the startups, because we don't influence them or try to say that you go with this party or that party. So we have some of the DFM, a few DFM experts in our panel, and we also have some of a few design and partner companies who would be able to actually pitch for the startups in getting their work done. So that is how we go about it. One of the reasons is that we are also trying to get an in-house DFM expert, so that at least some of the early mistakes that they make could be avoided. So that is one of our short-term plans, is to have an in-house expert. In fact, with the Bring Accelerator program, we were supposed to have an expert from Taiwan posted here. So, but due to visa restrictions, he was not able to relocate here. So otherwise, we would have got someone who has worked in Lego and has got experience in building a large number of products to to have a at least have a look at their product and advise them on which way to go. So that is and probably once this the visa restrictions are reduced, I think we'll have him at this center full time. So that is one of the plans we have regarding that.
Okay, and see, once the product is commercially released or completed, tooling completed, the next thing probably we should be discussing about is the testing methods and the certifications for different products. So you may be having that experience here, right, in Maker Village. So how do you support or see this thing?
Yeah. I'll explain this with an example which I went through. Uh, so during this COVID crisis, there was a shortage of N95 masks. So all of us were sent with very specific projects. I had the task of getting a manufacturer for N95 masks. So let me give you a very brief a brief snippet on what this mask does. So the normal masks which you use, so including branded ones that people usually wear around, and the cloth masks are not designed to protect you from a COVID infected person. It is basically intended to ensure that your cough droplets or when you sneeze, it doesn't spread out. So it reduces the likelihood of you generating aerosols into an environment. It has almost zero protection against, against any kind of infections that can come mm, through viruses and bacteria, uh, which which are usually aerosols. So it doesn't do anything of that sort. So if you really want to get protection from, let's say, this coronavirus, you need to wear a properly certified N95 mask. As part of that, I was involved in a lot of technical aspects, and from that viewpoint, I would like to basically touch upon the difference between testing standards, testing, and certifications. So these three are three different aspects. Uh, it's a standards and regulations which defines some of the characteristics of the product. So what quality standards it should keep? What is the intended use of the product? How do you intend to label the product? What are the performance characteristics the product has to meet? And some of these key physical parameters can be evaluated through testing. Uh, I'll talk about, let's say, if it's N95, it's regulated by the National Institute of Safety and Health of the U.S. Department of the United States. That is the only agency in the world that basically certifies N95 marks. So all these marks you find when anyone gives you an N95 marks, you should actually check if there is a NIOSH approved number on that mask. Otherwise, it is not N95. It is just printed N95. So anyone can just print N95 on any mask. But if you have to actually call it an N95 mask, it's usually the National Institute of Safety and Health. It's called NIOSH. So now they have some. Now they have a standard or regulation regarding this. So so that is called, I think it's called CFR 28 Part 84. So that shows the kind of testing that has to be done. What are the quality controls? So a very important test would be the particle penetration. So in this test, an, an aerosol of zero point 0.3 micron is passed through this mask at, let's say, 85 liters per minute, and what is the penetration is calculated. So if it's less than 5%, we could say that this is good enough as an N95 mask. So similarly, Europe has a classification called FFP2, which is regulated by a standard called EN 149. So they also say that you need to carry this number of tests to evaluate the physical performance. uh, like if you actually do this same test on a cloth mask almost 90% of the particles would pass through. So that is why, if you really need to save yourself, you should wear N95 masks. But the government advises against using that because there could be scarcity for health workers. So that is a testing part. So you have, basically, you have regulations and standards, and then you have a particular test. So tests are done in laboratories, approved laboratories, and once you get the once you do some tests, you can actually go for certification. Now, certification is a much more wider process. So uh, as far as FDA or NIOSH is concerned, the certification in the US and in India is done by the regulatory body itself. So it is not outsourced to any private agency. So in India, it's the Bureau of Indian Standards who does the certification. In the US, there is FDA, and NIOSH does this for N95 marks. In Europe, it's a different concept altogether. So uh, for certain kind of products, they ask for self certification. So you have to self attest that you conform to all these regulations. You have done these tests, and you can affix something called the CE certifications, which you would have found in a large number of products. Now, for products like let's say N95 masks, they ask you to go to a notified body. So notified bodies are private companies which actually takes care of the certification process. So only once you get a once you go through a certification process through a notified agency, that you can actually affix the class of the product and the CE certification. So that is how it works. Now, uh, as far as the certification process is concerned, it is not just the product characteristics that is taken care of. So they ensure that you have a very proper quality control panel process. You follow certain hygienic standards. In some cases, there is a clean room facility. You follow particular methods of testing, like you take these many number of samples for these many number of products. You visually inspect each of the product. Like, for example, in N95 mask, we are supposed to actually physically and visually inspect each of the product before that is packed. So only once they are actually sure that you go through all these processes, that you'd be actually certified as an N95 or as an FFP2. So in India, once you get that certification, you can affix an ISI mark. In the US, in Europe, you would fix an CE mark, and in the US, you would fix an N95 mark. So that is after the certification is over. So that is this is what I would like to. I wanted to communicate regarding certifications. It usually takes around for this particular product. It took around 2.5 months to go through this process.
Okay. So that is very important aspect, to commercially release the products. So the next thing I want to know, how MakerVillage is supporting to get patents or protect their IPs. So a company when approaches you for this product development, how do you support with these things?
Yeah. Uh, if there is a chance that this particular idea has an IP, so what they should probably, what we ask them to do is to consult a patent agent. So the uh, most important thing to be done first is a patent search. So the patent search should be done properly to ensure that this is actually patentable. So you could actually think about different ideas, and there is nothing stops you from applying for a patent. So, but something that has to be taken care is that this is not it doesn't affect something that has been filed before by some other person or a company. So that is the first thing that should be done, and it is always better to approach a patent agent and spend some money on that. And usually the patent agent would advise you that if you do it in a different manner and you add on different claims, you could actually come up with an application. And once that is done, you could either apply uh, in the Indian Patent Office, or if you find that your product has applications across the world, it is better to apply in this through this organization called WIPO, where a large so there is a agreement between a large number of countries. So once you apply here, and if a provisional patent is granted, you get 18 months of time period in which you can apply into in every other countries. So within in that 18 months period, this particular idea so, or anything related to this, if someone else applies for this particular idea in this partner countries, they automatically get rejected. But that stands only for 18 months. So after 18 months, in this time period, you should probably identify your market geographies, and then you should individually apply to all these countries. So that is one of the suggestions we usually give to startups. And also, both the state government and the central government has patent reimbursement schemes. So at different stages, the expenses which has been foregone is usually reimbursed by both the state and central government. So there are very specific schemes for that.
Fair enough. So once we complete this product development phases, including the patent and certifications, next I want to know about the Maker Village again. Like, do you have any foreign collaborations or any acceleration programs running here?
I think I briefly touched upon that during
Yeah.
the initial presentation.
Mm.
So
Mm.
the accelerator program which we have brings us to take 10 startups across India. Uh, so we in the last batch we got around 250 applications, and six startups were selected. In the first cohort, we got around 180 or 90 applications, and we took around four startups. So this is not very specifically for MakerVillage startups. So this is open to startups across India. So, and that was one of the main intent was to ensure that there is some kind of competition and cross cultural collaboration. And when these startups get accepted into this program, they get into a peer group of global companies. So all these accelerator programs run in parallel. So bring this one in Poland, in Hong Kong, in Guangzhou, in Singapore, in US, in Australia. So everything happens together. So they get connected to a wider group, which unfortunately we do not have easy access to. So this is one way of getting access to a global peer group and understand what is happening around the world. This also enables all these companies to benchmark uh, the pace of product development, where they stand in terms of technology and talent. So that is one of the major benefits. So that we are able to benchmark ourselves to a global stage. So otherwise, we would be basically working with startups in and around this vicinity. We would not be knowing what is actually happening around the world, how good we are, and we could keep on praising ourselves through presentations and things like that. That doesn't actually work out. So that is one of the reasons we have this program. So around 10 startups are selected, and we are finding good traction among those startups. So in fact, four of them has subsequently raised considerable amount of grants, and three of them has been selected by Qualcomm for the Qualcomm design in their challenge. So that is huge. 30% of the startups in that program is again from this Bring Accelerator program. So we also have this global demo day that is happening right now, and we hope that some of these startups either get corporate customers or get investment. So yeah, that is it. So and this is a very unique initiative in the sense that the moment they get entry into the program, they get funded and they get a
Yeah.
basket of service offerings. So yeah, so and probably
So
this should be the first international accelerator program in the country.
so we started off with Make in India and those effectiveness. Now we are running Atmanirbhar initiative. So uh, see, end of the day, I would like to get some insights on the funding or the support from Maker Village to really commercially release and succeed if the product is good. So that's so you can explain to that, and I think the time is up so that we can conclude by that.
Yeah, so regarding the funding schemes, as I've mentioned, we have basically uh, uh, we are partners for different central government institutions. So, so that is what I initially showed in my slides. Like there are programs which has funding from around 10 lakhs to 1.5 crores. And these are very specific theme-based programs. So that is one way we provide funding. And in very specific cases, when we there's a requirement of a bridge funding, and if the startup has a VC partner or a institutional partner who's able to contribute, we have the option of going for a co-investment. So that is one way we help startups to escape from the valley of debt. And the other is the schemes which I talked about. And one thing which MakerVillage is very strong is in indigenization. So we are a
Mm.
partner of something called the Innovation for Defense Excellence of the Ministry of Defense program, where they are trying to come up with very indigenized solutions for their problem. So they give different problem statements, and the startups have to come up with a solution, and they provide funding and mentoring support for that. We basically support them in the product development part. Recently, we also signed an MOU with the Navy, where they have started a new defense. So that the name of that organization is it's called Defense and Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization. So that was recently launched by the defense minister around two weeks back. So again, in that area also we have started very specific indigenization programs. So that is what we are doing as far as the indigenization is concerned. We expect that we should be able to do 10 to 15 projects every year just for the just for defense. And as you know, defense is again a very huge importer of both technologies and products and ammunition. Now the other part, what we're right now, what we're doing is something called the Swadeshi microprocessor challenge. So, as you know, most of the microprocessors and microcontrollers that are used are made in the US or in Japan or Korea. So right now, IIT Madras and CDAC has come up with their own line of microprocessor called Shakti and Vigar respectively. So there is a program which there is a challenge which has been launched for both startups, innovators, and students, where they get access to these microprocessors. And MakerVillage is coordinating that program across India. So there's around 4.3 crores of prize money specifically for this project. So that is our part, what we're doing for this Atmanirbhar program.
Yeah, this is exactly, I think, Pavitra from IMK was asking, like, can you share the specifics of support extended to success stories from Maker Village? So she mentioned few companies also. So I think that's the answer, right?
Yeah, and so that is not exactly the answer to that. So Gen Robotics is not was not part of MakerVillage. Bagmo, if you see, you were able to actually put
Mm,
them into the Accelerator program.
mm,
We also had helped them pilot their
mm,
product in some of the government hospitals.
mm,
Uh, they also did some of their prototyping using our facilities. And
mm,
if you look at SMO robotics, so most of the products was developed here. In fact, we had an inventory of some of the robotic components which he was able to make use of. He was
okay.
able to make use of LiDAR-based systems, which we had, a sensor which we had for depth detection. Probably
Mm,
a major part of the body of the robot was manufactured here. We were also able to connect him to prospective customers and also provide him a launch pad. So yeah, that is some of the very specific support we have done for a few startups.
okay. So by that, we are ending our session now. So I hope this is an engaging session. And I would like to summarize whatever we discussed. Like, it's good to know that incubation center in Maker Village is making as make in India reality. And I understood that it's a 60,000 square feet uh, building which facilitates this, and almost 78 new startups working here, 7 programs, and especially the interesting part is the mix of products across, like, uh, IoT, robotics, medical, drones. It's very nice and interesting to know that 30 new companies joins year on year. Though there are few uh, closures, and we also talked about the product journey, and we touched upon the pitfalls. I hope we gave some insights on the tooling, importance of that, understanding of tooling, mentoring. So again, I just want to once again tell you the disclaimer that this is purely our personal opinion and it has nothing to do with our organizations. And we would like to thank the organizations, organizers like Liz Thomas, CCH, and Parvat, and especially the Entrepreneurship Club from Kochi. So all these people were very supportive, and we hope you had good time and got something out of this discussion. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah, I think
Rohan. Thank you for.
I think it was a great opportunity for me to discuss about MakerVillage and some very technical stuff. So it was a great opportunity, and I hope that a large number of prospective innovators would make use of this
Yes.
facility. And once again, I thank the IMK alumni group and this Thomas and Parvat Raj who has done a lot of tireless effort to make this happen. So they have been after me and they have been making me do a lot of work on this. And I think with the sustained momentum, I think we should be having make this a very successful program.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you.
all.